like to make a couple of general comments before I introduce Lieutenant General Libutti. First of all, I want everybody to be aware of the poster displays that veterans and a few others have put up so kindly and generously. And perhaps during the coffee breaks, lunch break, even after the conference for an hour or so, please take time to go by and discuss the displays with those that are presenting them. The second thing is, as far as questions from the audience, we definitely want to encourage that, but to help to control the time line of the program, we'd like to delay questions until after, as far as the morning session is concerned, until after Mr. Richard Shepard has spoken, which precedes a coffee break, and then after Colonel Jim McGinty's talk, which precedes the lunch. So save your questions until those two times for the morning session, please. At this time, it's my distinct honor and privilege to introduce Frank Libutti, retired Lieutenant General from the United States Marine Corps. By way of background, Frank graduated from the Citadel in 1966. He entered the 41st Officer Candidate course at Quantico, and he graduated with the Basic School Class 367 on March 29, 1967. Second Lieutenant Libutti was immediately assigned to combat duty in Vietnam, where he served as a platoon commander with Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marine Regiment. For his actions during the July 2, 1967 battle at the Marketplace, then Lieutenant Libutti received the Silver Star Medal. He has led a distinguished military career that culminated with his 1999 assignment as Commanding General, United States Marine Corps Forces Pacific, Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force Pacific. Today, Lieutenant General Libutti is CEO and President of PSNS Global. Please join me in welcoming Frank Libutti.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Hoorah and Semper Fi. Follow me, U.S. Army, in the attack. And God bless everyone who has served our country or continues to serve our country wearing the cloth of the armed forces of this beloved country. So put your hands together for yourself and every man and woman who stands tall and supports our country in uniform. Hoorah! I learned my manners as a Marine knucklehead lieutenant that when you're in the company of a great warrior hero, you should recognize him as many times as you can. Colonel Wesley Scott Fox, stand up and be recognized. Medal of Honor recipient, Wesley Fox. Thank you all. I want to also ask you to do me a favor and give you some background, and I'm just honored and privileged to share this. I know General P., who's the superintendent here at this great institute, VMI. I have been here a week, asked to work with the cadets, the faculty, the athletic department, the commandant of cadets, to kind of put my thumb on the pulse and report back to General P, hey, sir, here's how it's going. And I got to tell you, it's going great at VMI. And the folks who supported me were the folks upstairs, we call it topside in the Marines, who supported me the whole week. And they couldn't have done a better job rolling out the red carpet and hugging me when I needed it. So put your hands together for the Leadership Ethics Center here, this building, and the great folks who supported me and today are supporting you. Please. Now, we didn't rehearse this, but work with me. If you are in the Marine Corps, stand up or raise your hand. Hoorah, Army. Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force. We got a joint effort here. There'll be a briefing in a minute or two, and we're attacking those bitches in Iraq and Afghanistan and anywhere else they stand. We got a joint force here. Hoorah! Hey, my subject today, to get half serious, is Vietnam Reflections, Lieutenant to Lieutenant General, 1966 to 2001. I'll share with you how I felt before I went to OCS, during OCS, what I learned over 35 years, and frankly, how I see U.S. in terms of politics, geopolitical BS, and all other things thereunto pertaining regarding where we sit and look at Southeast Asia. Underline the word China. Pause for effect, it says here. In the 60s, interesting time in our country, socially, politically, including college campuses. It was a time of great debate. What was the debate? Do we get into Vietnam or not? Then someone would whisper at the side, hey, remember what they did to the French in Dien Bien Phu? Ooh, do we want to do that? So one might ask why the U.S. was even interested, if not ready to poise and go and land those first Marines. 1965, I think is correct. So here are some of the points, and I'm not saying this is right or valid, I just share it as my viewpoint. Strong arguments supporting what was known as the domino theory. You lose Vietnam, you lose the rest of Southeast Asia. Andy, who's going to follow me, is going to talk as an academic and a smart guy about what all that really meant. Next, Southeast Asia was part of the SEATO, the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. The U.S. had an obligation to stand up, lock up, and go. Perhaps. And last, North Vietnam was a communist state supported by the Chinese and the Russians. And I got to tell you, as an aside, there's a hell of a lot of parallels between before we went in, when we went in, strategy, operational art of war, and tactics vis-a-vis, in those days, vis-a-vis what we're doing now in the Arabian Gulf, Syria, and the rest. Not to be discussed here. That's another day and another time, but think about that, my dear friends. All right, so Libutti is getting ready to go to OCS. He gets to OCS, he's fired up. Whew. Doing the pull-ups, doing the push-ups, etc. Excited about serving our country. Thrilled about the opportunity to lead Marines, but not having a clue how that's going to work. We always put a good face on it, and my father would say, good luck and don't screw it up, Libutti. All right, so onward. Platoon Commander, Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. I can still remember when I got there. Actually, let me backtrack. I'm going through the stamps and the shots on Okinawa. And one of the desks was an assignment to your unit. Now, all of the 1-9 guys will get this. And I walked up, Libutti, Frank, United States Marine Corps. Libutti. Yeah, you're going to be a platoon commander in 1-9. And the guy looks up and he says, God bless you, sir. He said, you know what we call 1-9? I said, no, sir. He goes, and there's a sergeant. He says, don't call me sir. I'm a sergeant. I work for a living. He said, the call sign at 1-9 was The Walking Dead. I said, oh, geez. Well, I get to 1-9, and I got, you all can picture this, just out of the basic school, trying hard to do the right thing. I'm in starched utilities. I'm high and tight, and I walk and meet my platoon, and they look like they've been ridden hard and put away wet. And they got a green uniform with a lot of white sweat and beat up boots, not a tight, close shave, and a little long hair. And I'm standing there, and I know the look they're giving me like, who is this knucklehead? But God blesses the weak. And I remember the only thing I said the first time I met the boys was, hi, I'm Frank Libutti. I'm honored to be here. My job is to make sure we execute our mission, and my job is to get you all home at the end of 13 months. Any questions? That's it. That was the beginning. And when I got there, the focus was on the following things: leadership challenges, intense combat, learning from my NCOs, taking care of the troops, leading. I recall well how the troops performed, and I was proud of each and every one. I remember the empathy and the sorrow I had when my men were killed, putting them in the plastic bag and moving them out. I remember how supportive they were of one another, how indeed they were the band of brothers. I vividly recall day-to-day life as a grunt, tired, thirsty, dirty, on watch 24/7, and under fire. I remember wondering if anyone in the U.S. knew what we were experiencing. I wondered why it was so damn hard to get new uniforms, new boots, more water. I started thinking, maybe we're not getting the support we need. Now, the first mission I had after I talked to the troops at day one was to go to Jiolin. Jiolin was way up north. Jiolin was over here. Cantien was over here, if you look at that map. True story. I'm brand new. I still got those damn starch utilities on. So I'm anxious to go, more energy than brains here. And the company commander says, Frank, get your platoon, get up to Jiolin, provide support for the artillery guys that are up there. Yes, sir. So we get on a couple 6-bys, and we're running up Highway 1. We pull into Jiolin, and as soon as we pull in, everybody who knows how to behave in combat except one guy on the truck, they all are finding cover and concealment, and I jump out, sort of like, holy shit, what's going on? And I jump into the first hole I see, and there's 2 other Marines. It's black as night in there. I don't introduce myself. I'm just holding tight. And one Marine says to the other, doesn't say hello to me, they're talking. And guy says, how much longer you got? Guy says, I got 2 weeks. Geez, that's great. And I'm thinking, I got 13 months. Holy moly. This is a true story. So the incoming stops, and my job is find a battery commander. And smoke is billowing across this high ground, this hill. I find the battery commander who is sitting in a beat-up old lawn chair with green around it, the matting. And he's sitting there with his cover on and a cigar. I don't think he moved during the whole incoming. So I walked up to him. Work with me, sir, okay? Lieutenant Libutti reported. He said, don't friggin' salute me, will you, please? and this is true. He says, all right, Libutti, look, take your platoon to the south side of the perimeter. Hold them off as long as you can, because we're supposed to get overrun tonight. Before I could digest that, I saluted, and as I walked away, I said, what did he just tell me? That was the first action that I saw in Vietnam. I'm going to fast forward and eliminate all the crazy patrols and the time that by mistake I blew up a 500-pound bomb, and that had been rigged to be exploded by the bad guys, but somebody 2 days before had cut the line. I called back and told the company commander, I'm on patrol and I found this small bomb and I'll blow it up. And I thought it was a small bomb. When I blew the 500-pound bomb up, it created a new water hole on the strip that we had. And now let me cut to the sort of significant event in my life as a commander. It was Operation Buffalo, 2nd of July, 1967. And the routine for the Marines up in the Dong Ha, up to DMZ area, you'd be, all the companies but one would be in the field, mostly patrolling, ambushes, that kind of thing. And one company would be back at Dong Ha, about 10 miles from the DMZ, kind of washing up and getting a haircut and going to church and all that sort of stuff. So the company I was with had just come out of the field and we were back getting cleaned up. And the other companies were in the field moving north from what was called the Strip right up to the Benhai River. And they were operating and getting support from mostly Cantien. And this is on a Sunday morning. And Sunday morning, like the good Italian Catholic boy, I'm in church praying, thanking God for being alive. And a guy runs in from the battalion headquarters saying, everybody in Charlie 19, get down to the LZ, you're moving out as soon as you can get your stuff together. We lost contact with Bravo 19. And so I jump to it. I run back to the company headquarters, a tent, and try to find the company commander. There's only 2 officers in the company, Knucklehead Libutti, second lieutenant, and a captain, Hutchinson. I could not find Hutchinson. So I said, well, I got to find out what's going on. So again, I run to the battalion headquarters and say, what's going on? They say, we lost comm with Bravo. We don't know. Key point, no intel. We don't know what's going on. But you guys are going to load up and go. And before you go, get your gas mask, because we think the North Vietnamese Army guys, the regiment, well, they didn't even know it was a regiment. They just said, we think they're using smoke, gas, whatever. So don't go without your mask. So that was one of the, again, raise your eyebrows, holy cow, they're throwing gas or something. So we load up everything, CH-34s were the machines we were traveling in, and we flew in. I did see the company commander briefly, who just said, get on the airplane. We were flying in to an area called Leatherneck Square, in and around what was called the Trace, very close to the Benhai River, very close to North Vietnam. And as we're flying in, and we had packed the helicopters tightly, I'm in the door, and I'm looking down, and I thought I was watching a movie, a Hollywood movie, because I saw smoke billowing, crazy people running around, shooting going on. I got on the ground and found the company commander, and I mean, there's bing, boom, beep, beep, boom. Everything was going on. This is one of those, before you go, you say, boy, you hope you get some kind of John Wayne experience. Man, holy smokes, this was it. The company commander said, Frank, we don't know what happened, but we have no comm with Bravo. You take the point, platoon. You take them in. Go get the dead and wounded. This is really interesting. Don't stay and fight. Okay, sir. Oh, we go in, hedgerows on both sides, dirt road, find lots of Marines wounded. And I remember coming around a corner, and as far as I could see, beyond the back of this room, as if the company gunny had told the company, take 10, take a break. There's nothing but dead Marines on both sides, gear all over the place. And I said, holy cow. You know, I don't mean to be vulgar, but you know the old expression, you don't know whether to shit or go blind? I just was, holy mackerel. And again, the mission, get the dead and wounded. My priority was get the wounded. And I kept moving north towards the Benhai River. I had no clue where the company commander was. And I got all the way up to a point, I don't know, several hundred meters, maybe a quarter mile from where I started. And I found the company CP, company commander, radio operator, RDFO, and corpsman, all dead on top of each other. And That was the beginning of the day. And I did my best to lead my Marines, but here's what I realized, and all of you who were grunts or supported us, when you walk into a situation and the mission is recover dead and wounded, you lose platoon or company integrity, because it takes 3 or 4 guys to carry a wounded or dead man back. You know, this is all quick learn. Lessons learned are happening right now. And to think you still got a fighting unit is questionable. It's a great unit, you're doing the right thing, but you start wondering, if we get attacked in the middle of trying to evacuate dead and wounded, what are we doing? So anyways, we're coming back, and I'm carrying the company commander, and other guys with me are carrying the other dead and wounded, putting them on tanks. And I don't know where the tanks came from. Maybe somebody can make me smart on this, Andy. I think the tanks, 2 of them I remember, came from Compiègne down to help us, along with people who were at Compiègne, a couple of field grade guys, Wally, I think, weren't they? I'm trying to think of his name, but you'll remind me later. Came down to help us try to get organized. But to put it in simple terms, it was chaos, which is what combat is. And leaders come forward and things get cleaned up, but chaos it is. Anyways, as we came back, and I found the company commander, and I'll try to cut to the chase. I don't mean to make this such a long sea story. Please forgive me. But as I came back, guess what happened? We started figuring out what was going on. We knew there was a lot of people, a lot of bad guys. We knew that combat effectiveness of the Marine units wasn't working. And I'll cut, if you can bear with me, I'll cut to the chase a little bit and just tell you what it really was. There was a full NVA regiment that ambushed a Marine Rifle Company. So there was 3,000 badasses in there trying to kill us. And they were using artillery, mortars, rockets, and they were having a great day for the first, I don't know, 5-10 hours of this fight. I had no intel. Again, doing all of what I said and then sharing you what we learned later, we had no clue. We just know there's a lot of bad people there. So coming back, the bad guys came closing in on us. And I'll just say that as I was moving out, trying to lead the unit back out to a strip where we could start evacuating dead and wounded, the bad guys came in. And I had, this is why I normally start the presentation everywhere saying, I'm Italian and God's executive officer is Italian. Because that day, an NVA soldier threw 2 grenades at me. One hit me in the crotch. I rolled away, came back. Same guy threw another grenade, hit me in the foot. Both grenades were duds. So I'm thinking, I got the rosary in one hand and my rifle in the other. And I'm, again, brand new second lieutenant. I don't know, I can't even hardly spell lieutenant. I mean, holy mackerel. So that was Operation Buffalo. Why am I sharing all that with you? Because it was during that experience, I even get emotional thinking about it. During that experience, I fell in love, deeply in love with those little green guys. They covered my 6. They threw me on a helicopter. They pumped me with morphine. They were there for me. And I fell in love with those guys. On the 2nd of July every year, I call every one of the guys in my platoon that's still alive, and I say, hi, Lieutenant Libutti here. God bless you, Semper Fi, I love you. And I do that because they were my guys. And when I call them, they don't say general, they say, hey, Lieutenant, how you doing? And I respect them tremendously. I got home after my tour. Well, actually what happened, I got wounded later that day 3 times, which my dad then called me and said, it didn't take a lot of brains, Frank, to get wounded 3 times in one day. And I couldn't begin to say, well, sir, we were surrounded. He said, what are you, nuts? I thought I told you how to take care of yourself better. Got wounded, went to the hospital, came back, went to Camp Carroll where 19 was. And I I was not in good shape. I should have stayed in the hospital. But I couldn't, I was so scared being in the hospital because I didn't have a weapon, and it was Vietnam, and I thought, shoot, if we got overrun, you know. But I left the hospital, went back to Camp Carroll, and the adjutant, or the admin guy, said, you got wounded 3 times, we're sending you home. I said, you kidding me? He said, no. I was looking for some single malt scotch to celebrate. And I'll give you a sense of why my attitude was starting to change. 1, I was frightened. 2, I still wasn't physically right. And there's no doubt, you know, whatever degree of post-traumatic stress, however you define it, and all of us who have been in bad combat have it, I believe, to some degree. Manifests itself in different ways. But anyway, I end up back in Okinawa to finish my 13 months. And I report in, and the guy says, sir, you can be the general's aide or you can run the officers club. I said, I'll run the officers club. So I ran the officers club, which is, I don't even want to get into that. I just tell you this, I was the only guy in that organization that could sign for all the liquor that was coming in. That's all I want to tell you. I just want to say the Marine Corps Air Wing was my biggest client, who would fly a C-130 in Okinawa, and then we had half as much liquor as we used to have the next morning. Anyway, when I got back to the States, I was assigned to OCS as a trainer and instructor and then a company commander, and I was thrilled to do it. But I had no intention of staying in the Marine Corps beyond my 3-year commitment. No intention. No intention at all. I got home, my marriage, I got married like a jerk 3 months before I went to Vietnam. When I left, my wife was pregnant. We didn't know each other very well. I was a Citadel guy. I have to say that softly because I'm here at VMI. And I can't tell you how much I respect General P and VMI. At any rate, I got home, the marriage was in trouble, ended up getting separated several times, finally divorced. Maybe the most traumatic thing in my life beyond getting shot at was getting divorced. Hard for me to handle. Family was supportive, but didn't understand what was going on in Vietnam. My dad questioned me, Frank, what are we doing over there? What's happening? Worst case, neighbors were disrespectful. Some spit on us. I got called baby killer several times getting in a cab in New York. Wondering what was going on. Why wasn't the rest of the country fired up and ready to do what's right for our great country? As a captain at OCS and then at 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, Camp LtGen, you don't think much about the past. Some of it you try not to remember, but I was focused on being a company commander at Camp LtGen, and still had great thoughts about not the war, but the people. Staff Sergeant Lafifi, platoon sergeant. Sergeant Francis, squad leader, best squad leader I had. Became a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps, then later flew for FedEx. Corporal Hammer, radio operator. Corporal Sullivan, squad leader, killed in June '67. Corporal Hartley, the guy who yelled, "Lieutenant, grenade!" And I rolled away. Again, just incredible memories. I started, though, however, as a captain wondering what we were doing. Fast forward to major and lieutenant colonel. And I was really privileged. As a lieutenant colonel, I was a commandant's aide de camp, General P.X. Kelly. And so was carrying the bag, staying out of the photos, keeping my mouth shut, trying to learn along the way. I went to the War College, Command and Staff College and the War College, and started trying to think a little deeper and more broadly about Vietnam. And please take me on with the question when we get to questions. So you know, we've learned good terms and we use them in expressing military strategy. One of the great terms is centers of gravity. So you look at Vietnam, North Vietnam, our fight, and as you get older, I couldn't think of this when I was a lieutenant, but as I matured, only a little, I would get in discussions with people about what was the real center of gravity. That meant for Vietnam is what did they protect, and if we could kill it, it would kill them in terms of their war effort. And then what was our center of gravity, and if the bad guys could get to that center of gravity, we'd lose. So, first, rhetorical question, rhetorical. What was their center of gravity? I would have initially said Ho Chi Minh and his leadership and his generals, especially, what is it, Andy, General Giap, the strategist for Ho Chi Minh. A lot of people would say, Libutti, that's crap. The center of gravity was the neutral zone, starting with Laos, where the Ho Chi Minh Trail came, where they were moving supplies and thousands of people a month to reinforce what was going on in the South. Really interesting question. The other interesting question is, was Ho Chi Minh a real communist? No kidding. Was he more a nationalist? Pause. Think about what happened at the Geneva Convention after World War II in terms of what was publicized as Ho Chi Minh goes to the UN, goes to the US, and some of our friends and allies in Europe and says, I want to unite the country. And I will propose, and again, some would say it was called a British mandate, others would say it was a French mandate. It was put on the table and it called for free elections. The US didn't support it. The French whispered in the ears of the US, you know, they kicked our ass at Dien Bien Phu. French telling the US, don't support Ho Chi Minh. Those are bad guys. So the US didn't support it. The proposition went nowhere. And I think back to Ho Chi Minh, Andy will tell you more about that. My take is this guy was Chinese communist trained and a no kidding communist. Nationally, at least in terms of his marketing, he'd like to project that he was indeed a nationalist because that's the way he could unite the country. All right, fast forward to my last assignment as Commander of Marine Forces Pacific, where I was traveling all over the Pacific. At the same time, Commander Marine Forces Central Command, so I was 1 week in Kuwait and Bahrain and UAE, and the next week I was in the Philippines or Indonesia or somewhere trying to keep my head right, especially dealing with the folks I had to deal with at pretty high levels. So here's my take. China's objective has become a regional hegemony and beyond, economically, in terms of security matters, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're doing, it appears to me, unless we get our head out of our butt, is we're minimizing. We're backing off. My attitude is, if I had 5 minutes with the President or the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, I'd say, no, look, don't fall off your chairs. We need to go into Vietnam, connect with the Vietnamese Marines. We need to establish training camps in Vietnam, operational camps, expeditionary camps. Not forget the past, but think about what we did with Japan. And talking about Japan, we need to get straight what the Marines and the Army and others are doing on Okinawa. Are we really moving to Guam? I don't know the answer. I can tell you there's a lot of money and a lot of political BS being chatted about on what's the right thing to do. My attitude is, first, before you start moving, ask what the mission is. What's the mission of the forces on Okinawa? And if you move them somewhere, can they still execute the mission? Next, we ought to do more back in the Philippines big time. Train, train, train. We ought to do everything we can to make our training and our readiness and our joint effort with Australia as much and as aggressive in the way we do business as we can. Australia is a friend. Japan is a friend. Vietnam can be our ally. I got to pause and tell you something I forgot. And this is the last point, and I would recommend Al, where's Al? We ought to take a short break because we've been talking for just 2-minute break. Let him get some coffee, sir, if I may suggest that. One of the things I didn't tell you that I did when I was a colonel, I was privileged to be on General Powell's staff. He was the chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff. I was on his personal staff. During the 2 years there, I had a really unique assignment. This is about Vietnam. I was told, Frank, hook up with General Jack Vesey, former Army 4-star, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I said, sir, what's the role? He says, you and Vesey are going back to Hanoi to negotiate with the Vietnamese on the matter of POW MIA. I made 5 trips to Hanoi from 90 to 92. Their goal was they wanted financial support, they wanted us to establish an embassy in Hanoi, and they wanted medical support, et cetera, et cetera. What did we want? We went over with this notion. One, find out whether they were holding any Americans against their will. We did this, I did it 5 times. General Vesey did it many more times before I got involved. Vesey told me, after he talked in his counterpart's face, in putting his finger in their chest, after that, Vesey said, Frank, they're not holding anybody. And if they were, they would have killed them. So there's no trace. But Vesey was convinced they weren't holding. Now think of the time frame, 90, 92. And during that time frame, some knuckleheads were putting literature out with photos suggesting that Vietnam was still holding prisoners. In my opinion, General Vesey, they weren't. So what were we then after? We were after their records on all shoot downs so that we could hold up against our records of lost pilots in particular and say, if you can give us your records, hold them up, juxtapose them against our records, we could tell the families of, at that time, about 2,500 that we still couldn't account for, and then close the record with the family. And when I was there, not because of Frank Libutti, but because of the effort, we found details. The Vietnamese opened their library, but it was funny because initially they were standoffish. They didn't want to share any records with us. And General Vesey, being a great leader, kept poking them in the chest, and they finally opened up and made a big difference. So anyways, that's it. Again, as I told you at the beginning, I was going to tell you how I felt, what I did, and what I think we ought to be doing in the future. I appreciate all of you more than I can tell you, and I just ask the good Lord to bless you all and your families, and hope the rest of the day goes well. Hoorah!